encounter. So the fact that we're here just kind of having a moment to reflect on this work of a professional learning community, this work that is captured in this beautiful graphic about the kind of school that you signed on to be a part of. Wow, that's just impressive. And the fact that you made that commitment at the beginning of this year or whenever you signed the contract. Do you have any first-year teachers in here? Any first-year teachers? Yeah, how about that? When you signed the contract, you go, wow, these guys are pretty serious about what they do. They're here to get all their kids to learn at high levels. They're here to get this highly collaborative culture and be results-oriented and have a focus on learning. I just think you're going to be powerful teams getting powerful results. Because if you follow that model, you will honestly create schools of high expectations for kids. I mean, people who study professional learning community schools, where the whole idea is that the entire staff is a professional, is a member of a professional learning community. That's what it boils down to. And as a member of the professional learning community, they have certain belief systems. I mean, there's this work they do in their collaborative teams, that there's a belief system that goes on inside a professional learning community that has a focus on learning and works collaboratively on matters related to learning and holds themselves accountable. Jonathan Zafir, who studied these schools, that he was there model schools for professional learning communities, he says there's a culture inside that school where the adults actually believe that they are the engine of hope for kids. That's how he termed it. He said, what I saw happening at Stevenson as I viewed these teams doing the work is that they were doing more than just the work. They had something else deeper, almost embedded in their very soul, so to speak. And the concept, he coined the phrase, those teachers believed they were the engine of hope for kids. He says they're able, it's like you look across the table from the people that you work with during a team meeting or during a faculty learning session when you're trying to learn things to get better at what we do to enhance your tools in your toolbox. He says they're able to look across the table and go, I know why you're here. There's no doubt in my mind why you're here, and you know why I'm here. We both hold the same idea. We're the engine of hope for kids. The kids will be better off because of us. Their lives will be changed because of us, which is totally a cool responsibility, isn't it? So Zafir said it's like this. These teams are doing the work, but they deliver 3 messages to kids every single day. Here, write down these 3 messages, okay? I'll give you a moment because I'm sure some of you just have the handouts we didn't bring your didn't have a pencil out yet. Okay. You're not gonna listen to me until 3:15. Oh my gosh. You're gonna have to talk to each other, you're gonna have to process things together. We're gonna be engaged and activated in the learning, okay? Centered around one essential question. But here's one of the things I want you to answer to start with. I want you to think about how you deliver these messages. Alright? You delivered them last week, you'll deliver them this week as well. Trust me, I can tell that about you. Ready? The first message that Zafir said all the teachers were delivering was this one. Kids, what we're doing here is important. What we are doing here is important. Just think about it. Wow. How do you say that? How do you model it? How do you organize that message? And how do you protect and reward? Because that's what he said they were doing. They took that message, what we're doing here is important, and they said it, they modeled it, they organized for it, they protected it, and they rewarded it. The second message is this. Just think about how you delivered this last week. The second message is this. You can do this. Look the kids in the eye, but you can do this. Coach K out of the University of Duke, whether you like Duke basketball or not, you've got to kind of appreciate this coach. He's pretty stellar, right? He says in his book, he says the 4 most powerful words anyone could ever hear are the words, I believe in you. You can do this. And then the final message is this. He says, they say this message, we're not going to give up on you. Even if you start to give up on yourself, which is a big old challenge for you guys that are secondary people. Because you have some kids who may have given up on themselves. Do you? You have any kids with fixed mindsets? You just don't believe they can do it? See if these people going, yeah, like in unison, or the whole room is going, mm-hmm. So at that school, they kind of battle that too. And so they deliver the message, we're not going to give up on you, even if you give up on yourself. And they say it, they model it, they organize for it, they protect it, and they reward it. And you think about, just turn to your neighbor real quick, just a shoulder partner next to you, and say, I think I get it. I think I get what he's talking about. A culture of high expectation. as teachers filled up in that building. Every hallway, every classroom is filled with an Engine of Hope teacher delivering those messages, because they have this culture of high expectations for students, because they have high expectations for the adults in the building. So real quick, just to review, here's how I say it, or model it, or organize, or protect, or reward those messages. Okay? That Engine of Hope that you are. Right? Talk to each other real quick. Here are different ways I say it, or model it, or organize for it in my classroom, protect, or reward those messages. Your conversation will come back together. Okay, so, oh wow, that's loud. Sorry, startled you, didn't it? Sorry about that. Let me bring you back. So it is the stuff that we normally do, right? It's like making sure kids understand we have lesson learning outcomes. And you explain to them why it's important, how it's relevant in their daily lives. You give them examples to hook them into the learning, always. So the relevancy of all the learning outcomes. So that's just normal stuff, right? But it's all y'all that are doing the reassessment. You're definitely, when you're having kids relearn because they didn't master it the first time, right? When you're not letting kids off the hook, you're delivering those messages. I mean, that's some serious business because it changed your world. It changed how you had to do business in the school. You see how it changes the culture of the school from the traditional school, which was pick the winners, the ones who get it right the first time, now to a school that says, even if you didn't get it right the first time, you still got to get it. Because we said that was important for you to do. It's the way you closed out your lesson, right? So it's the way you begin, it's the way you bring it in the middle, it's the formative assessments, it's the relearning that goes on, right? It's all of those things that convince students that you're pretty serious about them mastering these concepts. It's that list that turned from a list of what we want kids to know and be able to do to a set of promises that you're going to work your tails off to make sure that they all know it. And if they're making some bad decisions, because they will, right? Why is that? Why do these kids sometimes make really bad decisions on their own behalf? Have you ever found any kids like that? That you go, that's not a good idea. That was a bad decision, right? Why is that? It's just the way the brain works. It's just the way those adolescent brains work. Here's what scientists tell you. The brain researchers will tell you that 80% of the brain's capacity to learn is developed by the age of 3. Crazy, right? Then there's that other part that's not developed until much later. Which part is that? Frontal lobe. What does that control? Decision-making, rational decision-making, executive decision-making, cascade decision-making. That's not developed until age 25, or then age 40. But right? I mean, seriously. You can guarantee that there's some kids who make some really questionable decisions this year, and you're not going to let them off the hook. You're going to help them with understanding the time frame that they have to work with and setting goals for doing that. Because what we're doing here is important. You can do this. We're not going to give up on you, even if you give up on yourself. See, that's one of the big ideas of the professional learning community. We boil the big ideas of the professional learning community down into 3 things. Now, there are 6 characteristics, but the ideas of the professional learning community is to create a school that has a focus on learning rather than teaching, work collaboratively on matters related to learning. Any matter related to learning that will help kids learn, we're going to work collaboratively and ensure that that's in a good place inside of our classrooms, inside of our school, right? We're going to identify why kids fail, and then we're going to take steps to cause those things to be remediated or alleviated for those kids that are failing, that are struggling. You're going to help them understand what it takes to learn, and that's... I have middle school here, right? Where's middle school? Where's the middle school? Oh, over here. Okay. All right. Did you see this stuff? This says if by 8th grade, a student hasn't figured out an appropriate theory for their learning, they're more likely to struggle as 9th graders and in high school. Think that's true? 9th grade, no. Where's 9th grade teachers? 9th grade, all right, in most high schools, 9th grade accounts for the highest percentage of P's and F's, almost always. And a lot of it is just haven't figured out an appropriate theory for learning. And so if we can accelerate that effort as a team and as a school, we can alleviate some of the failures down the road for kids because they'll take ownership of their learning, invest in what it takes to learn, understand what it takes to learn because of our focus on learning rather than just teaching. And that will include helping kids understand what it takes to be successful in school. How cool would that be? How cool if all the kids in our secondary schools here knew what it took to be successful because we reinforced that in our model of the classroom and our work together as a team. Wouldn't that be awesome? So the goal of this particular day, the half day I have with you, is just to keep exploring how the big ideas of the professional learning community connect to your actions, but also your beliefs. Because I think when you have a set of beliefs, you'll have actions that follow that. I have a definite set of beliefs about learning, don't you? Like what it takes to learn. Do this. Turn to your neighbor real quick, okay? Turn to your neighbor real quick. What do you know about learning already? And how the brain works? I mean, talk to your neighbor about the brain research that you understand in terms of brain imaging. This is why we do things differently in today's world, is because of brain research. Brain imaging alone has taught us more about the human brain and how it works than almost any of our other practices we have in place. So real quick, do it like this, do it. Turn to your neighbor and explain it how you explain it to kids. Like a learning-centered classroom would have, because we're a learning-centered school, they would have talked about this on the first week of school, usually the first 2 days. You would have said, this is why I do what I do. This is how it connects to learning. Have a quick conversation. Here's what I talk to kids about. Here's the video I showed them. Here's how I describe it. Here's the actions we use to help them know what process of the brain we're using, right, when we're using it. Okay, so let's try on that whole idea of how does the brain work. That's Latin. How many of you can read Latin? Anybody here take Latin? You did. I did too. I took Latin when I was in high school, right? 2 years of it. This is the one thing I remember. Actually, I don't remember how to say those words now, right? I just remember what it means. Our teacher had it above the door of the classroom, so every time you walked out of the door, you had to say that. Okay? And I still, but heck, that was like in 1973, so I really can't remember stuff back in 1973 very well. The translation is this: the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but rather wood to be ignited. But if that was new learning for all of us, and we'd never seen that before, we would struggle. We would struggle with it. Even if I went over it, you would still struggle with it, right? So what was happening is some of you looked at that, you tried to sound it out. You tried to think of a word that was similar to an English word that you could connect to. There are a couple in there that, now that I've told you what it means, you can kind of see some similar patterns in some of the ideas, right? But you still struggle because it's a new concept, a language you didn't know, something that was foreign to you, which a lot of our subjects are to kids, right? Yeah, so when you think about that's the quote I remember. The other quote I remember from Latin was one written in the book by the previous student. You know what I mean? It wasn't about the teacher, it was about the language of Latin. It said, Latin is a dead language, it's plain enough to see. It killed off all the Romans, and now it's killing me. And you go, okay, we erase that stuff in the book because it totally influences people. I never was much of a Latin student after that point, right? See, I hope that we are always thinking about how to ignite the learning of kids in a learning-centered classroom. How we give each other ideas for doing that. I was with the science team. You know what they do with their I can statements and their student-friendly terms? They break it out from a student-friendly terminology to a concept where they define this is what it means a student has to be able to do. So their teamwork is, I can do these things, this means, and they actually share with the students explicitly what you have to do to demonstrate mastery of the concept. There is no questioning in those students' minds on how they're going to be assessed or what they will have to produce for that answer or that level that they're looking for in terms of mastery. Explicit success criteria by these teams. That's some pretty high-level work. Because some teams, all I see them do is create a guaranteed viable curriculum for the adults to know about. And not get it to that leveraging piece where the kids really understand it. The kids are absolutely crystal clear, this is what I have to do to demonstrate mastery on this concept prior to the end of the unit assessment, right? You know what these teachers are doing? These science teachers are finding hooks. So every time they sit together, they say, so what's going to be our hook? Now that we know what the learning outcome is, what's going to be our hook? Because every lesson has to have 2 hooks. We know that about how the brain works. You probably describe that to kids, right, in some way. I had a biology teacher who says, I teach kids about dendrites and how neurons in the brain are always talking to dendrites. So literally, in her high school biology class, they have stop time for dendrite and neuron dances, right? Which is her reflective processing, time to think things through, get the dendrites and neurons, what's making sense to you, what do you have questions about, what are you wondering about, dendrites and neurons talking, let's form synapses, and so she actually teaches this concept, but does it in a way, right, where kids get that this is why we're doing what we're doing, because you're helping us create synapses, the connections that have to occur in the brain, right? In that other science class, you know what they're doing? They give kids dress rehearsals. They were having this problem on the retests where kids were taking the test and then turning it in going, when's the retake? You know? And so they thought about that and said, oh my gosh, this is destroying the moral fiber of our community. Kids have stopped studying for the first test. So they looked at their own practices and said, we need to change some of our practices. We're creating a system that's not a good system for kids. And so now they give quizzes to kids that are called inactive grades, which kids love. So throughout the unit, the kids have an experience with the assessment that they're going to see at the end, right? That as a learning tool, it's actually a teaching tool Isn't that cool? They're using assessment as an instructional strategy, and kids look to see, am I getting it or not getting it? Here's where I am. Here's where I need to be. What do I need to do to close the gap this week, right? So kids become more invested as the teachers organize and orchestrate this whole flow of understanding about assessment as an instructional tool. Pretty cool stuff. They have no new instruction days. Like I've seen it in middle school, they actually plan during a unit of instruction for a no new instruction day. And they give a quiz, and if they need it, they use it. If they don't need it, they keep going on. But they look at the data midway through a unit, and they go, wow, we got enough kids that aren't getting this that we don't need to keep going. We need a no new instruction day. And our kids who are getting it, they can do the Genius Hour. The other kids, which are exploratory courses, right? Exploratory effort, or sometimes called Google Day, or Genius Hour, Innovation Day. Yeah, so you guys know that stuff. Okay, so that's one of the things they're doing in the No New Instruction Day, while some of the kids are getting additional help based off the assessment that came part of it. The 6th grade team at that middle school, they call it the Ketchup Day. And they actually do, because in the building, ketchup bottles. They actually put ketchup bottles on their doors on Ketchup Day. And kids look at that and go, sweet, it's Ketchup Day. No new instruction, nothing. We just get to catch up. The 7th grade team calls it WOW Day, W-O-W, which stands for Work on the Work. And the 8th grade team calls it our P-O-A Day. You know what that one is? Our period of awesomeness, which is kind of funny to think. But so they're doing this no new instruction day. Then, I bet you know this too. How many of you have given a dress rehearsal prior to the real test? Like you've swapped out that old practice of study guides and review pages, and instead you're doing a dress rehearsal for the test, like we do in other areas of school, like in band and in music and in drama and in other subjects, or sometimes, and in real life they do dress rehearsals, like to get licensed and certified, or to eat. Like we had a guy studying for the bar. You know what he did all summer long? Took online practice tests. So a lot of you probably are doing that practice 2 days prior to. You just switched out lower level thinking for higher level demonstration. Here's what I know. Now, what do I need to engage in? And they're not even grading it. The kids just huddle up in groups of 4, right? And they use their study guide that they were given at the beginning of the period that the team developed, the beginning of the unit. They use that study guide to prove their answers to their peers. They have dialogue, they have debate, they have discussion, they have, here's the proof going on right then and there. They have fewer reassessments. They have fewer reassessments that way because kids are more active. When you're just looking up an answer and writing it on a study guide, that's not much brainwave activity. But when you're having dialogue, debate, study, exploration, proving it, much higher level of brainwave activity going on, so more dendrites and neurons, greater opportunity for synapses. And you just thought, wow, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good focus on learning, isn't it? That's like taking all the things we know about learning and wrapping it into a practice that has a greater guarantee that students will see themselves and see where they are in their learning, and then self-report that, and then engage in deeper study for how can I get better when I take the test 2 days later. What do you think about that practice? Talk to your neighbor. How's that like something you're already doing? It probably is spot on. That probably is what you're doing already. I just had to celebrate this group I've seen do this. So, thanks for having the discussion. I appreciate your. I really appreciate the reflective nature of the educators in this district. Thank you all very much. I'm assuming you're talking about what I asked you to talk about, right? But, I do. But here's the cool thing, so that's a group of ninth graders commenting on this practice that I was just describing. Their teachers call it inactive grades, so the quizzes are all inactive grades. They're in the camp on a formative assessment that says, tell kids what that score would be if it was the real thing, but let them know that they're not locked down on that there's still a pathway to success. Because as soon as they see that there's no pathway to success, it's the minute they become unmotivated. And you run into all kinds of problems in the classroom when they are unmotivated because they don't think you've created a pathway to their success. That's the truth about student motivation and engagement in grades. They will be motivated even with a low grade. Tom Guskey has proven this in his research. They will be motivated even with a low grade if they know there's a pathway to success. We've got to orchestrate that in the right way, like these teachers are doing, and like the way I was describing it to you. So you don't want to lock them in if they have a low grade, but you do want them to know what that score is, right? So your feedback has to be something that causes them to think about you're not locked in on that grade. It doesn't indicate you don't know how to do it. It just means you're not there yet. Let's think about what you need to do towards effort and preparation and what I can do to help you reach that level of success. So when I read those statements by ninth grade kids in Center City, Kansas City, I'm thinking, that's a pretty cool thing to be thinking. Notice there's some common threads here. And one of the threads that you don't see is a thread about points and my grade. I think you see more threads about learning and what it takes to learn if you read those statements. Also, it's a way to tell me what I need to study, right? They give me a chance to make mistakes and learn to do things the right way, right? We can get feedback on what we need to fix so we can get better at it next time. Comments like, it just gives us more practice. Oh, so learning will require practice. That's what you're wanting kids to get. Kids with fixed mindsets don't get that. If you ask a fixed mindset kid why they think some kids in class are doing better than they are, they have a different theory. What's their theory? Yeah, they'll tell you. Those kids get it because they're smarter. That is a theory we have got to change in the concept of a focus on learning school. We can't have kids thinking that it's just about the school is only for the ones who get it right the first time or get it the way I taught it. It's just, you're not there yet. We're going to figure out how to get you there yet. And I'm going to try some different strategies, and you are too. You're going to think through your processes for learning and what it will take to be successful. If you do interventions, right? If you do this model really, really well, kids will walk out of your school knowing what they need to do to be successful in their future studies. Here's the process that really works for me in my future studies. So I wanted to share that with you because in my journey, this was a school we had a chance to work with because when I retired from Springfield, I went to work for the state of Missouri as a PLC project director. So while I've had lots of years of experience in this work, one of the years was as a project director for professional learning communities because that puts me in education over 35 years. I've been doing this work for over 35 years. 28 years in a school building. I never did district level work. That just didn't fit for me. I always needed to be around the kids, around teachers, and that kind of thing. Plus, I got to tell you, your folks look happy, but our district level people never smiled. Oh my gosh! I thought, you guys don't like what you do anymore, right? So I like being in a building where people smiled and they felt like they were changing the world. So yeah, I started teaching in 1978 in a junior high special education classroom. Back in a building that was built in 1929. Back in the day when they were trying to find any place in the world in that building to put a special education teacher. Right? It was a new program back in 1978 in so many schools. My room was the boiler room. Yeah, seriously, this old, they used to feed the furnaces with coal. My room was where they had the coal, right? It was fascinating. Now they had the pipes running through it, and they had the meter with the meter where they read the... I knew the meter reader better than I knew my principal in that building, right? Because he came in every month. We never saw the principal. principal. I mean, never saw him. It was the craziest thing. Well, we saw him once a week in room 104 where we sat in desks and he gave us information. That was it. We knew we were supposed to be on Tuesday afternoon, room 104 for a faculty meeting to get information. That was it. There was no professional learning. There was no collaboration. You had planning time. Everybody had planning time, but wow, it was like most teachers thought it was as a break. It was a break from the kids for that day or in the middle of your day. You might talk with a colleague about some things, but it really wasn't about collaboration or curriculum assessment instruction. And no one thought that they were part of a team. They definitely didn't think I was part of the team. They thought, I'm hired to work with these kids, and we're hired to work with the rest of the kids. And that's what Tim gets paid this money for, right? I can remember having a conversation with a social studies teacher once, asking him, I just wanted to know what the kids were going to have to do on an assessment. What is it that you're going to test them over? That's all I wanted to know, so I could kind of like help them, help prepare them, help study with them. He said, that wouldn't be fair to tell you what's going to be on the test, Tim. It's not fair for your kids to know what's on the test, the other kids not to know what's on the test. Besides, I haven't written it yet. I mean, how am I supposed to be? I won't write that test, Tim, until Thursday. We get the test on Friday. I'll write it on Thursday night. Well, of course, because I won't know what I've taught until Thursday, right? So I'm thinking, wow, thank goodness we have changed since 1978, right? I think it's great with special education teachers. Like my sister's a special education teacher in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She sits on the math team because she works with the math curriculum with her kids. And she is a value added. She's not there to get information. She's there to be a member of the team. And it's really powerful. I never had that experience as a teacher. So I wanted my teachers to have that experience of working collaboratively, right? Because it ages you when you're on it on your own, doesn't it? Who's a first-year teacher here? Raise your hand again, first-year teachers. Look at these young people. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Hey, do this. How many of you have done this? Have you had school pictures yet? Save your first school picture. Okay? Because down the road, you're going to want to compare it. Here we go. 1978. There we have it. Man, is this a journey or what? Oh my God. And it takes its toll, but isn't it great work to be in 1978? Oh my goodness gracious. Yes. So in 1978, I had some amens and some amens and some ahas. I still have them to this day. I mean, if you calculate it, it's almost 40 years. You start teaching in 1970, I'm getting close to 40 years. I just started rounding down the numbers to 35, okay? Don't you still have it? You know what I mean by growth mindset, fixed mindset teachers? Okay, so turn to your neighbor real quick, okay? And tell them what a growth mindset teacher sounds like when they come into a team meeting and they have their data and they know that some of the kids didn't do well on learning. Enough kids didn't do well on a learning target that they're concerned about their learning and their mastery of the concept. What do they say? What does it sound like at a team meeting? I mean, just give it to them, right? Here's what happens in our team meeting if we're growth mindset people, right? What does it sound like? Talk to each other real quick. Okay, so if we want to take a shot at it, what do you think it would sound like? Or what does it sound like if you're a growth mindset team oriented towards a growth mindset? Yeah, go ahead. Say it again. What can we do differently? My first my growth mindset is, okay, I want you all to take a look at question number 5 and 6. Measures this learning target. My kids bombed it. My kids bombed it. How did yours do? Right? And if you go, my kids bombed it too, then we've got a program concern that we have to talk about. But if your kids did great on it, I got to talk to you. Because I was working hard. But I didn't get the results that you got, so what the heck did you do? And I might even be so bold as to say, can I come watch you do that? Can you show me? Can you give me that? Can I see that? That's what I'm going to do. Because I need to be better. Let's just all agree, let's trust each other enough to go, just because Tim's kids didn't get it doesn't mean he's a bad teacher. It just means his kids didn't get it. And he needs a different tool in his toolbox, and I can help him with that. And it might not have been hardly anything different that you did. It could be one little thing, like, oh, I knew that was a hard concept, so I reviewed it every day with my kids for the first 10 minutes of class because it's so hard for them to understand it. So we just brought it back. That's it? That's all you did? You reviewed it for 10 minutes every day? I just taught it that one time. It could be, I used this thinking map. And I know thinking maps, but I used the wrong one. It could be you got a strategy like having kids motivated by having them track and set goals and then track their progress towards goals. And I could learn from that and try that one on. Or it could be how you used it. It could be your formative assessment, in-class formative, not common formative assessment. It could be just your formative assessment, instructional strategy that informed you which kids needed help. And so, or it could be your strategy that allowed you to release some kids for independent practice while others worked with you eyeball to eyeball instead of all of the kids being released for independent practice. It could be something as simple as how you manage that in your classroom during that part of the lesson for independent/guided practice, knowing that some kids are ready to go on their own and others need more time and support right then and there. And all you can do is share that with me. So you're responsible for coming in with those ideas, right? Was it how much time I spent on it? Was it a strategy? Was it a product? Or do I motivate kids differently? Was it a formative assessment? And if you tell me something, not only will it make a difference in how I would have taught that, it'll make a difference in how I teach another unit. Now I'll start going, yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm going to review like Harry does. I'm going to do just like Harry does, or whatever. So you'll change my practice. The growth mindset teacher, oh, come on, tell me, how many of you are growth mindset teachers? You're growth mindset teachers? Yeah, you live your life in this protocol, amen, so what? I'm totally that way, right? What's a fixed mindset teacher sound like? What do you think? Talk to your neighbor. What does a fixed mindset teacher sound like? This bit. Yeah, that's okay. And actually, I would say bending is okay unless it's all the time. Then it's just constant, right? Yeah, a little bit of bending is part of who we have to be. Okay. All right. So, one guy over here says a fixed mindset teacher would say things like, "I taught it, they just didn't get it." These kids today, I'm telling you. That kind of stuff. They don't look at their own practices. They don't look at a different way of doing it. They don't solicit help from their colleagues, right? And this is the elementary story, but you'll be able to relate to this. So in elementary, I worked with an elementary school, and this kindergarten team lead was talking to the first grade team lead, and she says, remember last year how we sent you all those kindergartners ready to read and write and do math on level? And the first grade team lead goes, yeah, we've had them all year long. It's been an amazing year. Whatever you guys did, keep doing it because these kids hit the ground running. It was amazing. They're so much further along because of you guys did the right things last year. So if we didn't thank you last year, let me thank you again this year. Thank you for sending us these kids. And the kindergarten team lead looked her colleague dead in the eye and said, well, it's not happening this year. And it was February. So in February, her kindergarten team, led by this team leader, was ready to write off a whole bunch of kindergarten kids, saying we can't get them there. She had a fixed mindset. Now, she may have just been venting. I'll give us that, okay? Maybe she was just venting, right? But here's the problem with venting too much. It becomes toxic. And it influences our negative disposition towards what we're capable. And everybody knows the difference of that, right? But how positive approaches affect negative approaches. That's why I live, there's something about me. I wake up every day knowing we're going to change the world. How many of you like that? You wake up every day going, I'm going to change the world today. That's from the Fred Factor. Fred, the book Fred by Mark Sanborn. Great little book. Okay, so Fred is actually a real-life postman. He's the author's postman. And as the author watches Fred, he sees that he does more than just deliver the mail. So it's like us. We do more than just deliver learning, right? We change the world. And that's how he viewed it. He says every interaction that Fred has with the people along his route, you can just tell he is more meaningful than just delivering mail. He decides to wake up every day intending to change the world, which is what we get to do every day. I mean, I'm motivated by that. I have a positive attitude because I think this is what we get to do. In traditional schools, it was pick the winners. In a learning center school, it would be to create winners. How many of you went to a pick the winner high school or pick the winner middle school? Were the kids who get it right the first time? Were the kids who get it right the first time? And some kids are born on third base and they get it right. And some kids are just now stepping up into the batter's box and they struggle with it. Yeah, but we just picked and created. Tell me your best story. Well, I have does anybody else have an academic area that you just don't think you were born to be able to do? Is it just me? In other words, I have a fixed mindset about an academic area. More than one, to be honest with you. Do you know where it came from? Where do you think it came from? Some people say parents. I'm not so sure about that. I think sometimes it does. I think it's reinforced by parents who, when they see their child is struggling, they do this little nurturing thing and say, don't worry, I wasn't very good at that either. But if their child's doing well, they're not saying that. Okay? There's a different level of communication. So have some fun. Have some fun. Think about your own personal life and then think about your academic field or academic area that you just don't think you can do. You've actually said, I wasn't born for that. I'm not wired for that. What is it? Because when you were in kindergarten, when you first started school, you did not believe that. Kindergarten kids always believe they're going to be able to learn. They go to school excited, motivated, pumped up, and they think their teachers are going to help them learn and they're going to get there. They have a lot of confidence, a lot of self-efficacy, right? When it starts to be diminished, it usually happens in school. And what caused it? Turn to your neighbor, just one person. Don't tell your whole group, all right? Just one person. Here's my academic area that I have a fixed mindset about, and where did it come from? All right? Go. Okay, so let me bring you back. Actually, what I find is if I let teachers talk about that too long, they'll need therapy. Because they'll realize that, oh my gosh, that happened as a result of feedback, either usually inappropriate or lack thereof, off of an instructional tool like an assessment or a teaching strategy, right? I mean, sometimes it comes, honestly, it comes because of poor instruction. We know that. We know that some fixed mindsets come from just really bad instructional strategies by teachers who think you should lecture the whole time, impart knowledge in that manner, never stop along the way, never hook kids into learning, just lecture format. Now, none of you do that, so I'm pretty confident that that wouldn't be the case here. We know that the brain has to, about every 10 minutes, the brain has to have a pause and have a chance to process what the information is they're receiving. And so that's why you use your thinking maps and your organizers for the classroom. That's why when you're creating that tool to have kids take notes throughout the unit that you gave them at the beginning of the unit, it's a chance to, all right, kids, get out that unit overview sheet. This is the concept we're talking about right now. Prove that you understand it. You've got a place for them to prove that they understand it. So that it's that you're hooking them, but you're also processing with them as you deliver information to them. So sometimes it was just bad instruction. How many had a teacher who just lectured forever? Like, yeah, and it turned you off to the subject very, very quickly because there was a lack of engagement, right? How many of you, though, had a teacher who really, they gave you one shot at the test, and if you didn't do well at the test, you got your data back, your score back, and it was just a grade on the paper. How many of you had that teacher? All it was a grade on the paper? Yeah, no feedback, no chance to improve, just here's your grade. And then what happens in the mind, what happens in our brain, or the child's brain, when they see a score on a paper? What's involved in their thinking when they see a score on a paper? What do you think? How smarter am I at this, or I'm a loser at this? How dumb am I at this? Yeah. This scoring business is kind of crazy, honestly. It sets in motion a whole action in the brain of determining or evaluating, am I good at this or not? That's why you guys have worked so hard to create pathways of success, even if they... Yeah, this is a hard thing to do, right? To give a paper back without a score on it, that's really hard to do. Kids challenge you. They want to know. They want to know how many points is this worth, what's my grade on this? It's one of the hardest things I think we have to do is convince kids who've been conditioned to look for points and grades to instead think about learning and being involved in learning from errors, learning from their mistakes. But that requires us to create a culture for that. See, my fixed mindset is mathematics. Anybody else say that? Mathematics? But not until geometry. I was a straight A student in alternate algebra. Hit geometry, and my teacher, who was a nice guy, he wasn't even meaning this, but it was memorize, you know, and not a lot of application, that kind of thing. And I didn't know how to really have a good theory or approach to memorization at that time. Now I know some strategies that help. But I didn't know those strategies back then when I was, 15 years old, right? So I struggled with that. He also was so he gave me one shot at the test. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you didn't. It's fixed mindset, whatever. And homework, he viewed homework as a summative event, right? You know what I mean by that? It was for a grade. It was for points. It wasn't to inform him of which students weren't getting it or anything like that. It wasn't an instructional strategy except for kids should have to practice on their own and do homework on their own. But he never saw it as a tool to inform him about kids needing help. You know that, right? Because you graded the papers. Well, you actually had to pass it to your neighbor, the guy next to you. Remember those days? Then you graded it, and you passed it to the front, and then he entered it into a grade, and then into the grade book. And that was back in the day when it was time for progress reports. To meet the obligation of progress reports and report cards, the teachers would stay up really late with their calculators going across the line, right? They have a ruler block. Okay, so Tim scores, and they just add up all your scores and the points possible and divide, to give an average, and that became your grade, was your average score in your learning. And homework was really, on top of that, homework was so random. Like, in almost all the math teachers did the same way. It was like, okay, kids, almost time for class to be over with, so let's do pages 26, 27, and 28, all the odds. Just do all the odds tonight. Really? We're so different, aren't we? Isn't it great that the world of education has changed since 1973, 1972? Talk to your neighbor about how it's different now. How we're creating winners now. Right? As opposed to that other practice. Yeah. So sometimes if we just reflect on practices that were ineffective for us, that created fixed mindsets for us, we would change that practice. See, he didn't know what he was doing about the growth mindset, fixed mindset stuff. He was just doing the practice he's always done. And it was really, I'm pretty sure, it was probably the same practice that happened for him when he was in school. It was just that cycle. If it worked for me, it ought to work for these kids. The theory of learning for him, right? And while his theory of learning is not totally off the wall, it just has some missing pieces in it, which is not looking at data. It's not a bad practice to have kids practice stuff, right? To get good at it. But you need to see if they are, not just to get points. That's not a crazy idea about effort and preparation leading to success. He just needed to be more aware that not every problem in the pages were ones like he taught or needed us to know and be able to do. He just needed to be aware that you shouldn't have to do 20 problems. You could do 5. And if you can do 5 and get it, that's all you needed to do. And he needed to be aware that we needed a model to judge it by. So we needed the answers. So we could check to see if our process was correct or not. Right? Because when you assign it to go out there on their own and release it for independent practice, you're making some tough decisions. Is it too much? Is it not enough? Is it at the right level? Will they have enough support? How will we look at it, right? What about the kid who doesn't understand it yet? What resources does he have available to him? And so you're really circling around in your head a lot of variables. that you have to understand when I give that assignment, it's not going to be equal for every student because of the various things that exist in students' lives, like parents and family and internet and understanding and wired the way you taught it, not wired the way you taught it. So the biggest challenge, I think, is knowing, is it time to release this to kids or not? And almost every teacher has their back pocket strategy. Don't you have your go-to strategy that you use to determine if I should release this to kids or not? What's yours? Like when you grade, because Marzano, in the Art and Science of Teaching even, he says that secondary students benefit from independent practice or homework. It's a positive effect size. Matter of fact, it makes his list of the things we should be doing. Of all the things, there's one thing's on the list. But his comment is we have to increase the value of homework. Not just homework for homework's sake, but increase the value of homework by making it part of a learning event. Now, I'm always curious what you do, because I'm trying to gather, I have 3 pages of scenarios that teachers actually use in the classroom at the secondary level to determine whether or not students should have this released to them. It's your strategy for knowing where they are in their learning. Rick Ramelli, Middle School Science Teacher of the Year, Disney Teacher of the Year, he says every great teacher knows by the end of the class period where their kids are in their learning. They are using a strategy to do that. Now, to me, that'd be pretty cool collaboration if you were sharing your strategies with each other. Here's how I got these results. This is the formative assessment strategy I use to see if it's too soon to release this to kids or whether they need additional help and support. So what's yours? You got one? Turn to your neighbor and say, here's my strategy. I'll share a couple, but it's right here already in the room, and we just grow in our toolboxes this way. What's your strategy that you use that's a formative assessment, your own, not common formative assessment, but your own informal or formal formative assessment strategy that you use to tell you if kids are getting this or not, so you know whether to release it to them to do? Focus on learning schools have these. Ready? Go. Okay. If you heard from a colleague, we're not such a big group that we couldn't do this, right? I'm hoping that at times you're having a solo learning moment, like, I hadn't thought about that. And it's just you on your own thinking about some stuff. I also hope that we have the small group learning that goes on, but this is a good chance for large group learning because we're not that big, right? Did you hear from if a colleague told you a strategy that you had an aha, would you just point that colleague out right now and say, share it with the rest of the room. Everybody else needs to hear your strategy. Would you do that real quick? Be bold. Share it. more. Not everybody knows. I don't. What was that about? Okay, yeah, all right. So digital electronic, right? Kids respond electronically on their device, and you can see which kids are getting the question, which kids are not getting the question. Beautiful. That's very effective. Yeah. What else? We've got another one, and do it fairly often. A lot of teachers, anybody here using the QR reader thing? You know what I'm talking about? Where they have different cards with a reader on it. You pass it over your device so you can read whether they get it or not, what their answers are, and you can take a look very quickly. I've seen that one. That's high tech to me. Like, we used to just use tints on their desk, right? 3x5 note cards folded over with A, B, C, D, right? And kids would hold up the letter or the tint would set up on the desk. You can even use that as you're teaching, and they're forming their idea and their hypothesis and their solution to the thing. You can actually have them show the card, and you can get an idea of where the class is based on the cards you see on the desk. So that's really cool. Who's got another one like that? So it doesn't have to be high tech. Thumbs up. Yeah, I don't mind thumbs up and thumbs sideways and thumbs out. It's just the kids can really not make a commitment with that. You know what I mean? It's like, what's your best doing? Oh, I don't want to be the one with the thumb down where everybody says the thumb up. So I kind of like it to be more, you gotta cut the wood, let's get it. What do you think? Show me for real. So you can't change your thumb, right? Anything like I saw an English teacher. She was doing. I don't know if this is a good assignment or not. So I think it's the English teacher should decide. But they were teaching metaphors and similes, and they were doing a practice sheet to identify those, just to kind of reinforce the learning. And what she did for the assignment is she said, if you're really solid about this, put a 3 on your paper. If you have a real quick question for clarification, put a 2 on your paper. Ones, put a 1. If you have that, put a 1 on your paper if you need a little more time with me. Remember, it's okay to have more time with me, right? And the kids, so do that right now. And she says, 3's get started, 2's come on up over here, 1's I want you gathering up over here in this corner of the room, right? 2, what's your question, answer. Come on over to group 1. This is going to be a little bit deeper conversation. It's going to take a little longer, so be with group 1. And seriously, in that little part of the classroom, that 15 minutes of the classroom for guided/independent practice, she really had it going on. Some kids needed more time and support because she built a culture centered around that idea that it's okay to get more time and support. That's what was happening, while other kids were off on their own, doing really, really well. I saw another teacher, this was a middle school, but it was high poverty, like 67% free reduced lunch. When she gave a homework assignment, when the kids, number one, she was in math class, and she only gave like 5 problems. Some that were one problem that was a challenge problem, where they'd have to kind of think and push themselves, and then the others were to reinforce the teaching, which is part of the homework guideline that they've adopted, is to support what they had learned. So when they bring it back, her kids sit in groups of 4, right? And she calls it, this is our time to share our effort. And this is a chance for you to share how you process, not your answers necessarily. You'll share your answers, but it's more important that you share your process, how you thought that through. And hey, if you got help last night, that was okay. Remember, I taught it the best way I knew how, but if you got help from home, from a brother or a sister or a friend or mom or dad, talk about how that worked. And in the complex problems, that's how they would have to figure that out and share that. And all she does is wander around the classroom for 10 minutes while the kids are sharing their effort and their processes, their answers. She went over to one kid, she goes, that's pretty cool. Oh, I should have taught it that way. So I'm going to have you come to the document camera when we all come back together and show us how to do that. She had to go over to another group. She said, you're telling the answers. That won't help us. Telling answers is not what this is about. Understanding the process and how you get to that, that's what this is about. So get back on track of doing that. And seriously, in 10 minutes, she had better information than if she had graded the papers. She activated all the keys of formative assessment, because homework is a formative assessment. Then she activated all the keys to it, and in 10 minutes, by just wandering around the classroom and recording whether or not you did it and listening in, she knew what she needed to do. She knew that some kids will need some support of getting the work done because they're not getting the work done. And when you compare that data about getting the work done with their quiz and assessment data, there's usually a direct correlation. And you want kids to see that. You want them to see that you're not giving enough effort to this and that's affecting your quiz. That's not always the case. Some kids are getting it in class off your first attempt, off your first great instruction, because they're connected pretty well with it. That's not always the case. But for that kid who has low quizzes, low test scores, and you've got the data about how much assignments they're missing, then you've got to start doing the work. And we're going to activate the intervention to cause you to do the work. The lack the will intervention. Okay, not lack the skill intervention. So that's how she processes it. And seriously, in 10 minutes, she knows if she can go on. She knows if she needs to differentiate. She knows if she needs to reteach the whole lesson because none of them got it. What do you think about those practices? 3, 2, 1, share our effort. One more, this one teacher, she puts a sample problem on the board for the assignment. It's from homework. And they write she gives them all 3x5 note cards. And they write their answer on the 3x5 note card. They pass it to the front of the room. She sorts it into right or wrong stacks. She picks up the stack of wrong answers, reads through them, and says, I found it. I found my favorite wrong answer. So she rewrites it and asks the students what they do that was right. Now, where did they get off track? If she's making errors, part of an okay event in the classroom, about you can get off track. So where it is, she says, I don't have kids miss the same stuff when I was going over the homework as they used to miss, right? Because now kids are active and involved and engaged in that. What do you think about that practice? Similar to some of you use exit slips. That's one way of knowing. I saw a 6th grade team. They do the exit slips. Essential question is what they taught to. There's a question at the end of the period. Kids write their answers down, and they drop it in the folder for first period, and the teacher closes it up, and they open up the folder for second period, and now they have strategy. Now they can look at the results at the end of the day and go, I need to reteach tomorrow. These kids aren't getting it, or, yeah, they got it. So they're using those strategies how many use exit slips? Yeah, see, that's one you would have noted, right? So things like that. So when I think about, engaging, this whole definition of professional learning communities, I think about what would happen if our staff came together and we started sharing some strategies about assessment, about formative assessment, about instruction, right? To help kids achieve at higher levels, about how we will respond to a student when they get an assessment back. Wouldn't that be that'd be pretty cool collaboration. Because then we got to get a guarantee that we'll have the same vision about what our classrooms are supposed to look like. I mean, those are just some of my thoughts about it here. Why don't you do this? Why don't you stand very, very quickly, all right, and release the blood that's been cooling. All right? Would you do that? Release the blood that's been cooling. Because I got you for the afternoon, and, you had the whole morning of it. Now, where's the blood cool? That's where you feel it. It actually pulls in your feet, the lower extremities, right? The lowest one. So just release the blood. Coaches, where are the coaches in here? Or PE people? What's the best way to release the blood that's been pooling in your feet? Walk. Yeah. How about just doing calf pumps? Just do calf pumps like this, right? Everybody, calf pumps like this. Okay. You got it? You got it? You got it? Okay. One last thing, and then I'm going to cut you loose for your break. Ready? So, real quick, turn to a neighbor real quick. Turn to a neighbor. Someone that looks interesting to you, all right? And do this, because we're coming back with one more example of a focus on learning, which is the first big idea of the professional learning community. We're trying to connect the big ideas of the professional learning community. That's the essential question for the day. We're trying to connect the big ideas of the professional learning community to our actions and our beliefs. So if you say a focus on learning, then you got to take a look at everything you do from the lens of learning and ask yourself, is it the best thing we could be doing? So quickly, turn to your friend and take 1 minute each. Well, let's do it this way. Designate one of you as letter A and the other person letter B. Do that very quickly so we have some order for this. One of you letter A, the other person letter B. Or C, A, B, and C. Raise your hand if you're letter A. So, you know what that means to me? If you're letter A, you're probably the risk taker because you're going to go first, right? Or it could mean one more thing. It could mean you're too slow. And you let the other person say, you be A, I'll be B. So letter A, you start. What I want you to do is I want you to tell your partner what you do with a test when you give it back to kids that causes them to re-engage in the learning. Even if they miss it. So you can't just, what do you do with a test that causes them to reflect and re-engage? Here's my strengths. These are things I need to work on. Tell your neighbor real quick. Okay? So switch roles, letter B. So letter A winding down, letter B, your turn. Explain your process, right? If you haven't already done so. Letter B. Alright. So one last thing. Let me give you permission to release the blood even more and other things that may need to be released by taking a 10-minute break. And then we'll come back, alright? So thank your partner for sharing. If they have a form that they use, get their email address. So they'll email you the form for format, alright? Take a 10-minute break, we'll come back.